Hey YouTubers, welcome back to Desert Have a Garden. This is going to be a little how-to video on troubleshooting loss of power in a John Deere 310C backhoe. So recently our backhoe, actually it was quite suddenly, the backhoe started losing power when Rick would go to lift the bucket with or without anything in it. The power was decreasing, and then ultimately it was just stalling out because it seemed like it was starved for fuel. The first thing he did was check the fluids, and it was a gallon low on antifreeze, and so he put that in there just in case maybe it was overheating. Turns out that wasn't the issue at all. He also added 5 gallons of hydraulic fluid, and that too wasn't the issue. He suspected all along it was a fuel issue, and so when we came up this weekend, he brought with him a new fuel filter, since that's something he had never changed on this backhoe in the, I don't know, 5 years we've owned it and used it. So we are going to get started on changing that fuel filter.
So this is John Deere's fuel filter. It's made out of glass, so you can see when water and junk is built up in it. If you look in here, get this head out of the way. There's a post on top. This one fits in. Simply slip it over that post. And then it hangs there. And they have this contraption here. A little tab on the top here hangs on the lip. A little easier with 2 hands and a camera not in the way. And this lower lip catches on this, but you got to push in with this, pull down with that to get it off. So when you go to get it off, you push in here, pull down here, pops it off. But that's it. And then to prime the filter, there's a lever on this fuel pump somewhere. There it is. And you'll actually work the fuel pump by hand. And you see right here, it's pumping the fuel in. Let's look over here what the fuel filter looks like. So you can see all the water and gunk that was in it. So that was probably a big part of our power loss, if not the only part. But it was at the top too. This is where the fuel comes in the bottom, goes to the top, and goes into the engine. And it's pretty nasty up here too, so it needed it.
We had to loosen the fuel line on the other side in order to bleed the fuel pump to get the air out, so I'm over here ready to close it when the air is done pumping through, and then Rick's over there priming it.
Is anything coming out of it?
Yes. Fuel. There's air.
Yeah.
I can hear the air hissing out now.
It's almost there. It's at the top of the fuel filter now. Should be fuel coming out. As soon as it's coming out, plug it.
Now it is. Okay, it's tightened back up.
It's coming out.
It was. Next, Rick is going to grease the joints on the tractor, but first he has to change out the tube because the grease gun is empty.
So I'm gonna pull this back. There's a notch in it. Put it off to the side. Sticks out at an angle like that, kind of funky. And you unscrew it. Grab the lip inside here and pull the can out. Careful, it's sharp, so grab it with a towel or a rag. This end is usually just got a piece of plastic on it. Pull the cap off. This side is going to be the side you open after. So you'll jam that opened end down inside the gun and then pop this side off. Screw the two pieces back together. There's a bleeder on this one. They usually don't work very good. So you'll work the lever back to the side, turn it, push it in. It's spring loaded, so it should put pressure on it. Sometimes you can get it to come out of there, sometimes not. And then you just pump it till it works. You'll get an air pocket, and that's it. She's ready to rock. I usually pump it till you see it come out of somewhere, so you can get a huge mess going. And that's it. Move around the tractor. That one got them both at the same time.
So it squirts out and makes a big mess. So do you clean that up, or what do you do?
I don't clean it up because it's going to get messy anyway. I do usually wipe the tip of all the grease dirt though before you pump grease in, so that I already did that.
So even though the fuel filter was really dirty and likely a big part of the problem, the tractor did begin losing power again after we had changed the fuel filter. So Rick suspects that it was getting past the fuel filter into the return line, and this is basically the pressure regulator of the backhoe. So he's going to see if he can clear out this side of the line, any chunks or debris that might be in there prior to cleaning the fuel filter. So
this is the return side. This is where it feeds from the filter, where she was bleeding it off. Fuel goes in, it gets pumped through this distributor style pump, and this is joins all of them across the top and returns it. So I'm assuming this is the regulator. It was dirty yesterday and cleaned it out, and it lasted for about 5 hours, but it started losing the power again last night, so we're going to check it one more time. Somehow this just keeps pouring fuel out too when you remove it, so I have a fuel tank underneath it to catch it so it'll drain into it.
a little brake cleaner there to clean it out.
Yep, I don't want all that stuff drain into my fuel can. Set the fuel can to catch that. There's an O-ring on this fitting. We don't have any O-rings here, but so far it's been okay. What I mean is it seals back up. Looks like the O-ring's stuck in there now. You can see it coming out. So this might not go back together and seal. Or it might, who knows. So there's a little O-ring on it. It is getting kind of messed up. But so inside this fitting, break these two loose. And inside of here has been where the junk was. And you can see there's something caught in it again. You probably can't see it on camera, but there is. So there's a little tiny ball in there, and there's a little side hole, and I think that's what regulates the fuel pressure. And it gets plugged up pretty easy. You can see what it does here.
So you clean it out with some brake clean, and I know yesterday you put a Q-tip in there.
Yeah, I cleaned a bunch of it out with a Q-tip. Yeah, you can see it's clear now. I don't know if you can see in there or not, but it's much clearer.
Okay, so there was something blocking again, and so that's residual debris left over from when the fuel filter was very dirty and stuff was getting past it, right?
Yep. And I never knew about any of this stuff, so, or not any of it, but about this return port. But we Googled it. Luckily we had some cell service. We Googled it and saw that it was a common failure on these whenever the fuel got filthy and nasty. So we tracked it down. Put it back together.
Now when tightening things on here, I know when you're working on cars you don't want to tighten stuff too tight because you can sometimes crimp lines and stuff like that. Is that an issue with these?
Not with this, it's pretty stout industrial stuff. So, but whenever you do something like one of these flare nuts to this, you always want to double wrench it, and I'll show you why in a minute. Because you can screw the lines up. It looks like this line's kind of damaged from somebody not double wrenching it before, or it could have just got hung up. But so that part you don't have to double wrench, but this part, when it goes back on, it's really tight the whole way. It's tight on this tube, so as you tighten it, you got to do it with a wrench. It won't turn by finger, which makes it a pain in the butt. So you gotta be careful you don't cross thread it. That's what's kind of hard with these hard lines too, is they want to hold it in wherever it was. And a lot of times when you pull it off, it's at the wrong angle, so it wants to cross thread on the way in. So you have to make sure it's not cross threaded.
So a little history on Rick, many of you don't know. He has a lot of experience working on heavy equipment. So after he served in the Marine Corps, he started work for a construction company that built golf courses, and so he was the lead mechanic for all the maintenance on all of their heavy equipment. So he has quite extensive experience working on all different sorts of heavy equipment, and so obviously each tractor has its own little nuances, but I think a lot of it is pretty transferable.
It is. It's very simple equipment. It's very robust, but it's very basic and simple, so it can be maintained in the field, and the simpler it is, the longer it lasts.
All right, so that's all put back together. Are we going to try and start her up?
Yep.
You can see he was working just through this little opening here. He didn't have to take any covers off or anything. So it started right up. Now we'll see if it's having enough power. So hopefully that got it all cleared out. All right, the tractor is running well again. It has full power. We're able to sift through our dirt. So it seems as though that was the problem. In the future, we're going to keep a closer eye on that fuel filter to make sure it doesn't get gummed up and cause other problems down the line. So I hope this video was helpful to you. Give us a thumbs up if it was, and stay tuned for more updates in the future.